This is Canucks Only.
This is Canucks Only.
Here are your hosts, Shylo Smith and Rob Young.
Okay, well, Shylo, how are you?
Hi, Rob, I'm okay. That was a game, wasn't it?
Well, yeah, you know, we made jokes about how the kids talk about the old 6-7 and it was 0-7, but now we're 0-8. And it's a heavy weight, right? Like it's a bit of a downer for sure. But we have a bit of a pick me up because we have our very first guest ever on Canucks Only, and I would like to welcome, and Shylo would like to welcome Bik Nizzar from Sportsnet Radio, the People's Show, the Canucks Central, the voice, one of the voices of Canucks pre and post game, during the game, all the games. Bik Nizzar, Bik, welcome to Canucks Only.
I'm honored to be here, guys. Thanks a lot for the invitation.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Bik.
You're welcome, and thanks to Shylo, who knew you. I mean, if for some people that do know some of my story, I come from TV, and I know some personalities and on-air talents, and but Shylo brought in the first guest, and he brought in a ringer right out of the gate here.
Well, you know, he's the glue that holds the intermission show and the pregame show all together.
I try my best. It's all I can do is try.
Yeah, it's funny, Bik, because meeting you for the first time here on the call. But having listened to you for, it's been a couple of years now. I mean, I think your bio says 2021 that you've been doing the show. That's been a good couple of years.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah. But you have a signature voice. Like for me, you're a very, very familiar voice. And it's now in my mind as a Canucks fan listening to radio when when I can't get to the games on TV. You've become a signature part of my Canucks experience.
Mm-hmm.
That again, it breaks my brain thinking about that at times because, again, we'll talk about careers and being in the industry. It's so challenging, and there's so many times in my career it's like, yeah, it'd be nice to do it, but it'll never happen to talk about the Canucks. And then now it's actually doing it for X amount of years. You're just like, wow, like okay, that's very flattering, and I hear that, and it's just like it still doesn't make sense to me sometimes.
Yeah, and your voice is very different than Sat's. It's very easy to distinguish, and it's just it's for me. You've become part of the. Is lexicon the right word? I don't even know. I'll correct myself sometimes
lore?
In these
lore.
Yeah,
lore.
You've become part of the you've been part of the landscape now in Canuck land for that's awesome. I mean, so congratulations for that.
Bik's voice is akin to like Batch. For me.
Oh wow.
Like when I that's like when I hear Bik on, I'm like, yeah, I listen, right? And when Batch is on, you listen what Batch has to say.
Yeah.
And
Batch has got the luxury of a really quick cadence though, because he's tracking the puck the whole way. I'm more long form. I need the space.
Well, I must admit, driving back from soccer practice for my kiddo today and listening a little bit more closely, man, like I really admire your depth of knowledge. You actually, there's level 1, level 2, level 3. You've really, as far as the things that you're looking at, it's obviously not surface level, but you've been doing it for long enough. But man, you have a really good grasp on the game. And obviously on the team that we love and we love to hate at the moment. But, so what is your background like as far as hockey, and what's your hockey knowledge, your hockey background, and then we'll talk about maybe your broadcasting career so far.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I'm fortunate to have played so many sports growing up, and I think that's why I think at times, Sat and I talk about this all the time. Just when you play so many sports growing up, you just get pieces of different perspectives along the way, whether it's basketball, football, soccer. Honestly, like I did a lot of karate growing up. I should say karate, taekwondo, but it's like, so you learn discipline, you learn all these different things, right? And you piece them all together, and hopefully like you take pieces, because no one sport should be so rigid that it's like, this is the only way to do it. Mm-hmm. You see sports nowadays, like, football is going through a basketball phase where they're like, hey, how do we open up the space and all this? And like all these sports kind of steal from each other. And that to me is like one of the beauties of hockey, because it's so different because the boards and how fast it can go, and yet there are principles you should be able to take. And so I've learned from so many different sports to kind of figure out how I want to view the game, and in conjunction with obviously how it is played. But like, that's just my personal experience. It's not the right way, it's not the wrong way, but that's like that's just the way that I've always just viewed it. Is we can learn lessons from every sport here.
Yeah. No, it's like a real-time example is in the women's league there, when that I don't know who, I'm not horrible with names, but the one who basically flicked the puck up and then smacked it down between the other girl's legs. Like, that's a lacrosse move. Yeah. Right? Like, that's full on lacrosse right there. And got around and made the pass and got the goal. Like, that was amazing. So
unreal.
So it's definitely something that's cool to see, like those crossovers from other sports really tying in. And yeah, you're right. Like, there is no dedicated one. There's always a way to play it better. Mm-hmm. And there's always a way to find something that another sport is doing and incorporating that into how you do things. And
again, for myself, being a broadcaster, I'm very curious. So when I was in small towns covering junior B, junior A hockey, right? You sit in the stands with a coffee and a coach, and you're just like, hey, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? And you just ask hundreds of questions over the course of a season, and you start to piece things. Okay, why people view it this way? Why it gets done this way? And over the course of a long career, you just start to kind of figure it out for me, and that's been helpful. And it's helpful to always reach out to people. It's like, hey, I see this way. Well, like, why am I right? Why am I wrong? And then they come back and be like, well, here's a 4-paragraph reason of why you're wrong. It's like, oh, okay. I can course correct all of a sudden. Right. So that to me is always the important bit to never, like, Sat and I always joke, we're very confident that we're never always right. Right. Well, so it's like you constantly have to search for answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the humility. That makes you, if you're always curious and humble enough to take that approach, you're never going to get into too much trouble at that point.
Well, you're going to be a better broadcaster too, because you're more open to other, instead of just being, and I'm trying to think of who that it was the guy that used to write for the Vancouver Sun, like 30 years ago, and he was just like narrow view on the Canucks, and I didn't like his writing because it was the same thing. It was just very narrow. He never expanded his sort of views on things. But to have that
Tony Gallagher,
mind,
do you?
I don't think it was Tony Gallagher. It was someone before.
30 years before that.
I can't remember. Anyway, but yeah, it's good to be able to be humble and to appreciate other views, because that's when you find something where you're like, hey, you know what? Like, that's a great idea. Right. Mm-hmm. And I haven't thought of it in that way. And I've heard you on the radio say that, where someone would phone in and say something, and you're like, hey, I never actually thought of it in that sort of viewpoint. Right. And it makes, like I said, it makes for good broadcasting, because I think anyone that's listening wants to feel like they're part of the conversation almost. They want to feel like they're not being told something, but they're having a conversation about something, right?
Yeah, and look, don't get me wrong. Like, there's a time and space of like, hey, I'm going to be convicted in my opinion, right? And I've done that, and it's you see the hailstorm in the text inbox and the Twitter mentions that come from that, and that's necessary as part of the job, and it's fun doing it. Don't get me wrong, but for me, this is like for sports, like end of the day, not just for the Canucks or anything. Like I'm a fan of sport, right? Like the beauty of being a fan is it's a community of people. Whether it's 18,000 people in a building or 70,000 wherever you are, or millions online, right? Like, this is ultimately all about a community, and it is fun to kind of take all the perspectives of the jaded fans, the optimistic fans, the high profile player, like all of it kind of amalgamates together to kind of have one conversation for my personal perspective of it all.
Yeah. Well, my hill that I will die on is that you will never convince me that Tyler Myers is a good defenseman. Never.
He set the first landmine for Bik here. You know, he's gonna tread carefully in the mine-filled water here. So, Bik, why don't you walk us through? How did you get here? How did you get to this moment, Sportsnet, and on our podcast? But more importantly, on 650 on the dial. I when I did Google you, I thought maybe we'd have some more connections in common, maybe on LinkedIn or something like that. But yeah, and you know, like your Instagram, there's a lot of football photos and stuff like that. But I only found some old radio articles when you were back in Chilliwack and Hope Radio, it seems. So why don't you walk us through your career and how you got here?
Sure. I don't recommend the path for anyone because it's a long path. But yeah, no, I went to Columbia Academy here in Vancouver, which is now Van Arts, I believe, and that was 2007, 2008. So you know, you're working for your first radio job, and my first radio job was in Grand Prairie in 2008, Grand Prairie, Alberta. Cover the Grand Prairie Storm, Junior Canucks there a lot. Sorry, not Junior Canucks. That was Dawson Creek. I can't remember the Junior B team name all of a sudden. There was a Junior B team in Grand Prairie. I covered them, and amidst all the other sports, curling, rodeos, and everything. So I was a sports reporter at the radio station there, Big Country FM, and spent a season there. Grand Prairie Storm won the AJHL that year, and then after a year, when I got into the broadcast world for school, I was like, oh, I want to work at the big networks and talk sports. That's all I want to do. And then you get into school and you're like, oh, this is actually so much fun. Like, radio is so much fun, broadcasting is so much fun, and the world was the world of it was so much bigger. And so there was an opportunity to go to a station, an independent station in Chetwynd, Peace FM, and to do a morning show, to be like the FM guy in the morning show. And I was like, oh, that seems like so much fun. Like, I want to go do that. And because it's a small station, I got to do like produce and write commercials. Yeah, I had to do everything, right? The classic small town radio story. And I was there for 3 years. It was so much fun. And then after a while, it's like, oh, you know what? I miss home. The timing, as I said there, it's like I left in 2008, so I missed the Olympics. I missed so many things just like around Vancouver, and I was like, oh, it was fun. And 2011 Canucks happened. I had to watch it in isolation all the way up north. I wasn't really with my friends watching it, right? So there's so many things I just like felt I missed, and I was like, I got to come back home. And I came back home, and I got a job in Squamish for Rogers. And then I got transferred to Chilliwack, as you mentioned, and then I was there for multiple years. And then I honestly thought my radio career was coming to an end because I wasn't really going as far as I thought I was. And then Sportsnet opened up, and I was like, you know what? The reason I got into this like 10 years ago was sports radio. And here's this miracle that the station is opening up, and I happen to work for Rogers, and I was lucky to kind of get transferred in there. And I pulled every string I could to I need an interview. Like, someone help me get an interview here, because I'll crush it, but I need to get my foot in the door somehow. And so that was a fun process.
Well, that's awesome.
Good for you. That's awesome. That's a great story. Missed 2011 though. That's terrible.
Oh, I know. So that playoff run, I started the Chicago series watching it up north. I came back here because I was on my way for a trip to England. Because I had vacation time from the radio station. I could only take it during the playoffs. I was like, all right, here I go. I watched the end. I watched Game 7 here in Vancouver with some family against Chicago. I watched the next series against Nashville in Liverpool, Manchester. Like, we stayed up all night. We were exhausted, me and a buddy. And then I came back home, watched the San Jose series end in Prince George because I was on my way back up north, and then I watched the rest of this. So I watched that playoff run in, I think, 6 different cities.
Oh man,
wow. And 9 different time zones.
Yeah, it was wild. Yeah,
that's crazy. I mean, I have a similar story. I was vacationing in Thailand back in 2002, and that's where the West Coast Express started to dominate. And just having to read it on the internet, going to the internet cafes and plugging in your quarters basically and paying for your internet time, and all, emailing, not even texting, emailing with family like, oh my gosh, you should see Bertuzzi, you should see Naslin. I'm like, oh man. And they went on that time I was away. They had an incredible stretch there. And I'm like, And, it was harder to see highlights back then, et cetera, et cetera. But anyways, so I relate a little bit to that. But, well, like a hearty congratulations on where you're at. And that's a fun little journey. And, the Columbia, was it called? What was it? Columbia Radio?
Academy, yeah.
Yeah. You and Don Taylor, hey?
Yeah, there's a lot of people that have come through there. And honestly, like the skills for it were so specific and helped me for the on-air component. So yeah, like there's other obviously great institutions that give you like a huge breadth of talent. But like for me, it was always like, as much as I love broadcasting and media, it's like I don't know if I'd be qualified if it wasn't on air, right? Like I can't do. I got to do the small town radio, but like I don't know if I'd be good at production. I don't know if I'd be good at all these other things. For me, it's like the conversation element is a thing that I always wanted to do.
That's awesome,
and you do it well.
Yeah, you do a fantastic job.
In 2011, I had seasons tickets.
Oh,
I'd sell. I'd always go to game 3 if it was like the third game in Vancouver.
Yeah,
and then I'd sell the rest. And game 7 came around, and this guy was like, because he knew I had tickets, and he goes, I had 2 seats. He goes, I'll give you $2,500 per like each ticket. I'll give you $5,000 for the 2 tickets. And I said, okay. And so I gave him the tickets, and I went to the bar and I watched the game on the big screen on the bar with $5,000 in my pocket.
Yeah. Wow. That's a perfect story. Like literally perfect
honestly,
story.
When I moved back home, I bought season tickets because I heard so many stories of people just like, oh, it was so great to be in the stands. So like I had season tickets from 2013 to 2016. And I was like, you know what? I can't afford it now because the prices kept going up.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, like that was a scenario for me.
Yeah, my daughter actually. We were at the game with the Sedins retiring, and she was a huge Daniel Sedin fan. Like and I got photos of her just bawling when at the end of the game when he retired, and I was like, yeah, that's his last game, and she was just tears pouring down her face. But and then I moved to the island, and I never renewed the tickets. It doesn't make sense.
Well, the bawling is my story in 97 when I bought season tickets for that year, Messier's first year.
Oh boy.
There was lots of crying that year.
Yeah.
So, well, we chatted before we started here about not beating this game to death, but the Ottawa game was, quick encapsulation was mostly a stinker. 50% a stinker. What's your quick summary of that game, Bik?
Yeah, like 75% a stinker, right? Like they gave it the old college try, but honestly, like I'm having a struggle kind of understanding what I'm watching most nights because like I've referenced this a lot throughout the course of the season, but you go through like the underlying numbers and everything right now. Like this team is performing as far as like the process wise, like expansion teams that we've seen over the course of the last 40-50 years. Like that's how poor it can be. And you look tonight, I get it's a back-to-back. Okay, cool. But it's happened with enough frequency this year. Like 11 shots on goal through 40 minutes. That's not good enough. I referenced this on the broadcast at the second intermission. At what point in the game, because we have puck tracking data and who's got possession time and all that, the Ottawa Senators had about a minute. Sorry, the overall the puck was in the offensive. Sorry, let me fix this. The puck was in the Ottawa Senators defensive zone for I think 12 minutes, and the Senators possessed the puck in the Canucks zone for like 8 minutes and 45 seconds. So, like, forget even like, oh, the Canucks are creating chances in the offensive zone. Like, they didn't. The Sens like were possessing the puck almost equally as much as the puck was in their own end, even if they were just going back for retrieval. Like it was for 40 minutes, it was thoroughly dominant, and the Sens ended with about 55.7% puck possession tonight, I think, which is a staggering number. Like we usually see 52, 53 is like a high number. 55 in a game which had no power plays, really. Like that is a stunning number, and it feels like we're seeing with enough frequency.
Yeah, and Shylo and I have referenced confusing. It's, like we're kind of baffled what we're seeing on this run leading up to this game too. It's very confusing. Things from effort level to execution. And then with a couple, maybe 2 or 3 decent performances from players, and the rest don't show up. It's very inconsistent. I think that's what we've been saying a lot for the last month for sure. Especially in this 0-8 run that we're on right now. So,
well, and I find, and I'm not someone who likes to play the coach card and saying like, oh, it's all in the coach and that's what's going on. But there's so many little things where I'm like, has he sided with the GM and it's tank time? Which I'm like, I can't see that because no coach wants to lose. But then I look at things like, Ratu is, I love Audi Roddy. I love him. Like he's got to work on his foot speed and he's got a couple of things to improve upon, but I like him. And his strength on the face-off dot is amazing. He was 60% tonight. All right. Pettersson was 25%. So why are we not using him more in the offensive zone to take the draws? Right. Even if he just takes it, wins it and gets off. How many times have we, not utilized the guy that's winning all their face-offs appropriately? And so to me, that's I would say it's bad coaching. Like, but you want to be putting your best ability to win out on the ice. And if your main center guy is sitting at 25%, perhaps he shouldn't be taking more face-offs then, right?
Honestly, I would even look at something just even simpler than that of like, why did Nils Höglander play 14:27 tonight, even strength, when Elias Pettersson played 14:07?
Yeah.
Like he's the one that scored the goal. He was honestly the only one creating for anyone tonight. Yeah. Garland a little bit, but again, 14:07. He was 7th amongst Canucks forwards tonight. It's stuff like that where you're just, okay, what's going on here? Like how come he's not regularly out there for even strength?
Why is he not doing 20? And like you said, there was no penalties really, right? So
and
he should be doing 23 minutes out there.
As far as the inconsistencies in performance, I just think there's inconsistencies in like operational stuff. So like there are nights when Ratu takes a lot of faceoffs. So on a night when he's going, why isn't he taking more?
Yeah.
And there are nights when if a guy isn't winning faceoffs, he gets punished and penalized for that. But there are nights where like Elias Pettersson here has had games where he's like 19% basically in the draw. And
he took like 26 draws.
Yeah, like the other night I think the other night I think he took 13 and he was 15.4% in the faceoff circle. Mm-hmm. Like there are nights too where he's having a good night, and I see like the inconsistencies in process in logic at times, and it's for us it's very challenging, and for fans I imagine, especially for a fan base that is as sharp as this fan base is, like. It leaves a lot of questions all like constantly, and it shouldn't really be like that. You're a professional coach. Like you should have, consistencies. So players are reliant on, okay, like this is the rhythm that we go through, but there really is no rhythm.
Yeah, no, it's, it almost feels like they're like it's like a skimmy, like these guys are just going out and just doing their own thing and having some fun playing hockey.
That would almost be preferable, having a Boudreau thing where, they're creating something because they're having fun on the offensive zone, play structure in the defense. But Bik, you're the perfect person to ask this question to, is that there was a tweet, it was an article written, and I cannot remember who broke it down, but was the breakout system the Canucks were using. This is about a month and a bit ago, where the structure, the way that the reporter broke it down was they were passing to either side of the blue line, but then passing back into the zone first and then forward. Did you catch that?
I think this is on Canucks Army, right?
Maybe it might be on Canucks Army. So did you see the article and sort of analyze it from
in scanning? I don't know if I really went through it. But essentially just talking about like the multiple DDD passes. It's like, is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, it was a D to winger.
Breakout.
Yeah, it was a D to winger and then back into the zone, back to the other D and then out. And they were very diligent in executing that system. But the funny thing is, every time you saw a goal, it wasn't that breakout. It was a long bomb pass. Someone with speed. They broke the system, and that was generating results to the point where Shylo and I were talking about, hey, it sure would be nice to see 3 passes in a row. And then there was a bit of a joke in this stretch where 3 passes in a row resulted in a goal. Like we can't even get 2 passes out of the zone. So there's some foundational things that are very confusing as well. And you're wondering what's being insisted upon by the staff, whatever systems they've come up with. And as a measure of success, it's not really working that well.
Well, the weak side stuff is look, this is something that Rick Tocchet also talked a lot about, of through the neutral zone, hitting that weak side player with speed, right? So that's a function of as well with Adam Foote. But I go to something, it's happened a lot, to be honest, a lot recently. But the Tavares goal against Toronto, you watch that play, like Zeev Williams skating up the wall. Evander Kane's already ahead on the wall. He's the winger on that play. And David Kamp's route on that, whether it's intentional by design for what the coach wants or David Kamp just made a mistake, he cuts to the wall. So now he's brought a defender. Zeev's being chased by a defender, and Kane's got a defender on him. And so there's 3 guys up the wall. Zeev can't go inside because Tyler Myers is released too early on the weak side. And so, sorry to bring up Myers or Shylo. And so Zeev just tries going up the wall with 5 bodies in the way. And so it gets picked off, and now it's just an easy pass central for Tavares to bury it. And like that's happened a lot where there's 2-3 guys, like 3 forwards on the wall in the neutral zone a lot. That is, like, you watch other games across the league, like they're not really doing that. They're trying to space out the neutral zone as much as possible. Like the other thing that really puzzles me too, and we were talking about this briefly on the post-game show, and I think we saw this more in the earlier season, but it's happened with enough frequency. When the Canucks win the puck, you see the wingers try to exit the zone up the boards, but they also are like looking at the defender, like the opposition defender up the zone, and it's as if they're waiting for the puck to bypass them so they can try to steal it off the defender. And if you think of Philip Hedl, like how many goals he scored in the early part of the season, right? Just like flip outs, chip outs, bouncing puck, he knocked it past somebody and he went and scored. Like you see a lot of that, and it's almost like you're conceding possession on the hope that you can recover it to try to create it. Like there's so many just odd little.
And I'm not a fan of that.
These minor just habits that they have, which there's value in it at times, but there's also just like you're supposed to seal the wall and chip the puck out, or tap it back to your center who's looping to support the play, and it all just looks so siloed at times.
I was watching. Well, it was actually the Red Wings game, and I made mention to a buddy of mine. I said, I almost feel like I'm watching like novice hockey where they all just sort of follow along to the puck. They all, the puck's on the boards and three forwards and 2 defensemen all just come over to that side of the ice. And I'm like, it feels like it's novice hockey here. Like I don't understand why they're chasing the puck instead of going to open space, right? Generating movement with the puck, trying to get it out from where the people are and do a proper breakout. And it's frustrating to watch because like we know this, and I can guarantee you they know it, but it's just the execution is not happening. And that's the frustrating part.
Yeah. Look, I go to the underlying numbers again. It's just like, why, like, how is it this bad, right? Because there's teams, again, I get this team's had their struggles and there's a lot of faith loss in what the potential of these players are. Totally appreciate that. And maybe there's an overrating. Okay, they're not a 100-point team, but it's especially with the loser point, like it's difficult to not get 75 points. And they're going to clear the bar fairly easily. And that to me is like a standard that is fairly unacceptable. Like even if you discount like, oh, these players aren't very good, they're not that far removed from winning a division.
Yeah.
Right. And so to go from that to you're struggling to get to 70 points, that's unbelievable. And it makes it tough to really evaluate the players in this environment for me.
It feels like they're doing too much thinking and there's not enough reacting and playing on hockey instinct and, what they've built their whole careers on, some hockey IQ and instinct.
The game shouldn't be this difficult, to be honest.
Right.
And they make it look really difficult.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, not to beat this to death, but so let's move into some grander overtures here. So, Bik, I know that you're, obviously we'll keep this, kind of positive-ish, but if you've got a bit of a magic wand right now, what is Bik Nizzar, the GM of the Vancouver Canucks? What does he do? What's if you had 1 or 2, 3 magic wand moves that you could do? If this was an EA hockey franchise, what
Right.
what overtures are you making right now?
Man, I think the first one, it's probably the crummiest one to do, but it's the one that makes the most sense. It's Connor Garland, right? Like this is a team that right now has to find bona fide top 6 guys. I shouldn't even say bona fide because that's confirmation. Like you need to find guys that have the potential to live in the top 6.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Connor Garland, to me, excellent player. If you're going to be a real team, like what we saw a couple of years ago with the Canucks winning division,
He's third.
He's an elite third liner, and to get to a stage where you're winning, like you need players to be elite in whatever role they're in. And Connor Garland can play the second line; he absolutely can, and survive and do well enough. But there's a difference between being good enough for a second line and being elite in a third line.
Yep.
And that to me is just kind of, it's unfortunate because he gives everything he's got all of the time. But you can't live in a world where he's making $6 million for the next 6 years with a no movement clause. You kind of have to get out of that before before you're painted into a corner. And I would say the same about Thatcher Demko, but like he has picked up another injury, and so that complicates things. It just you have to jettison the bad money, I shouldn't even say bad money because it's not bad money, but you have to jettison like the long-term spending of this team because you can't get shoehorned into certain things and say, well, there's nothing we can do. You have to try to create as much flexibility for this team and for upward mobility for potential prospects, but also find guys that are going to be confirmed top 6 players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's 30, and so he's got, is it another 6
also
years?
That, yeah, he's a little older, yeah.
So, but it's also what I'm also hearing, and I agree with you because Shylo and I have discussed this, but it's also a sell high moment, right? He's playing, almost as well as he can. He's on the first line, he's on the second line, and we've discussed on this show if you go back to 2011 and overpaying a Manny Malhotra to play on your third line, where he can also be on the second line, and maybe if you want on the first line, but on the third line, he absolutely dominated. He was a face-off specialist, and that third line with him, Hansen, and say Torres, they destroyed the other third lines because they were elite on the third line. So I don't disagree with you. And it's, we've also discussed the Thatcher Demko angle where it's also, on the right team, a Carolina, if they need a 1B, if they're unsure about their 1A, then Thatcher Demko as a 1B is incredible if he's healthy. And now that chip has been blown, that card has been blown right out of the water for I would say, the next 2 months. I mean, if he can make to trade deadline time, that would be a miracle at this point. But yeah, I agree with you.
I wanted to trade him like a year ago, to be honest.
Like the other thing with Garland too is like this started a couple of years ago. Like, look, he arrived and it was like, okay, like a fun player, 46 points. He can do that. And it really popped off that 1 year, obviously, with him, Joshua, and Bluger, and he clips 20 goals. But what's funny is these last 2 years, he's gotten a lot more minutes. He went from 14 and a half minutes, 15 minutes to 18 to 19, but the point production hasn't improved. So the points per game might be going up, but the points per 60 have really bottomed out here for Connor Garland. So that's the interesting point too. Is like he's gotten more ice time, but the overall point production isn't really going up.
Yeah. So there's your first magic wand, a Garland type move. Get what you can, value and asset wise. I think you'd probably split the audience in that is a 50-50, or I mean, you probably have a better pulse on that, but I don't disagree with that. And a Demko move would be smart as well, even though he has said he doesn't want to leave and Garland just re-signed. So there's your first magic wand. What's your next one, Bik?
Man, again, I'm avoiding all the UFAs because that to me is just that's easy business. Like
you don't need a magic wand to make that happen.
That's just like you have to sort that out, and they'll get dealt before the trade deadline. But as far as like the hard decisions, again, you're probably going with your Jake DeBrusks and I don't think you can sort something out with Marcus Pettersson, but because he's got a no movement clause and you're in the first year of a 6-year deal as well there. But like there's something that hasn't really worked either. And we saw him 33 games last year. It's like that was a functional D-man. But, and I think this is where I have my own personal conflicts of, okay, why is there so much struggle right now this year for him? Like what has changed between Rick Tocchet and Adam Foote, and it makes it challenging to evaluate a player like Marcus Pettersson, who looked fantastic. Like he looked like a real top 4 D man, even if it's number 4. But he showed his specialty in defensive hockey. Whereas this year, like it's a struggle to watch him constantly be chasing the play and trying to catch up to
burnt.
Yeah,
like
and it's gotten better to be fair, but there was a 6-week stretch at the beginning of the season where it just looked routine of someone scoring.
Yeah, and then whenever they put like Pettersson together with Myers, I was like, well, there's the defensive pairing that's going to get scored on.
But even Marcus, he was bobbling the puck a lot early in the season too. It was he tried to hold it the line, it would go past him. It was quite noticeable compared to when we first acquired him. It's like, oh, he's playing kind of like nice, airtight, responsible, relatively mistake-free defensive hockey. That's what you want from someone you paid a first-round draft pick for, at that point for who he is in this league. But man, that sure evaporated reasonably quickly, and he started to regain a little bit, man. But there was some struggles for sure this year. Very, very confusing.
Yeah. Just one last thing about the magic wand. Is this roster only things, or can I wave a magic wand on anything?
You're the EA franchise. You're the GM. Everything.
No, I don't think you can do this in video game. But like my number one thing is like the organization needs to embrace like competitive standards. It's as simple as that. Like. You have to embrace like wanting to get better at everything. Everything. Like you have to have this idea that like today we're getting 1% better at anything. And when you start to put that in everywhere across the organization, everything is going to get pushed forward. And we've talked about this a great deal on the show on Canucks Central here recently. And when you lose as much as they have done in these past 2 years, to me, it's not just about, like we're this bad at this. It just reveals everything about you. And the willingness to almost the resignation of like, well, this is going to end, and well, Quinn Hughes is going to go, and we knew for like all this sort of stuff that you hear of the public quotes. It's like, that shouldn't be a mentality in your organization. You should be willing to like fight on the sword, right? Like, go through it all. And there is just too much just like overall resignation. And to me, like the mentality of the organization is the thing that needs to improve the most. And
it's like they need to actually get an identity as an organization.
Yeah.
Like back when Pat Quinn was running things, there was a very strong identity that they had, right? And Pat Quinn would be like, if there was an edge that he thought he could get, right? He's like, sleeping containers. Sure. Bring them in. Let's see how these work. Right. Oh, you need a shrink. You need a hockey shrink. Here you go. Here's your hockey shrink. Like, he would do anything that he thought would give his players an extra edge. And I think we've lost that. It just seems like we're just trying to keep the product that's on the ice without identifying things off ice that we can do to improve upon it.
I do think that's like also a player mentality too, and that's why I look at someone like Braden Coots, who's just exciting for me, not just because he dashes and he's so fast. It's not even just about the physical traits for Braden Coots. There seems to be like a mentality of, hey, the job here is to win, right? There's a great Mike Tomlin quote that I love citing all the time, where he talks about obviously the NFL, but football is a business. Sorry. Football is the game. The business is winning. And I think too often we talk about, brand for the Canucks. We talk about like filling seats. We talk about all these other things. All this is precursor to winning. And when you've been in an organization that hasn't won as much as they have, I think I just feel like the eyes aren't on the right ball.
And read your market. This is a rabid fan base, like literally rabid with madness. And to dishonor that, and this fan base deserves a winner for what we have put up with. And it's funny, as I was thinking of things to ask you, like it's even trying to describe to the people what it's like to be a Canucks fan where we've never won, and yet we're a top franchise, we're a top fan base, and it's resulted in the social media landscape and the calls and texts that you have to deal with, right? People have lost their minds, because, and it may or may not ever get fixed by actually winning, because that mentality is now it's part of the fabric of this fan base. But winning sure will help, and that's an interesting point you make about the mindset for winning, because look at Vegas. If you heard the origin stories, the owner coming in, everything was first class, everything, all the way, everything. And that came from his business, and I think also from the university. He still, I think, his alma mater for his whoever the owner is and what the university was, but that's the mentality that went right through the organization. And so even a Washington Capitals, with Leonosis and those organizations. And so I think you're right, and there's a lot to be, we can read in a lot to that with this ownership, this organization, and it's shifted. And it's also whoever the GM is. So if you go from a Pat Quinn to a Mike Gillis, it's shifted. And then from then going to a Jim Benning, but with the ownership, with the ownership changing as well. And so, and only those walls can speak to what actually those conversations are, and we can try and guess, but all we get to do is beat ourselves up over the results that we see, whether it's effort wise or results wise, winning, and then all of the misses along the way. And so that's a super interesting point. I hadn't thought about that one too much, but I agree with you.
And look, I want to be clear. Like this isn't about misguided ambition, right? Because I think you look at what when Jim Benning came in, there was like, oh, we can turn this around quickly. It's not about that. It's about obviously, like, you can have a plan in place of rebuild, and we can get into that conversation. But do you have like the courage to see a plan through? Like, and that's something very simple. Like we've heard even in this last year of, oh, okay, if we trade JT Miller, we're taking a step back, but then you do things and trade a first round pick. Like if you have standards, you're going to follow your plan, whatever it is. Yeah. And it's all these things that I think too often there's like trying to win the perception. It's like, no, stop trying to win the press conferences. Stop trying to win the quotes, win the game. Like have that mentality that we have to try to win whatever it is we're working on right now. But too often they try to win the external battle than focusing on actually what's important and winning the games. You'll win all the other stuff when you win the games.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
was that your second magic wand or your third?
I think that was my third magic wand, because I'm talking about DeBrusk.
Do you want more
as well? Oh man, I think we need like a lot of magic through this whole.
Oh man,
I got a quick question for you. What do you think of Dolopilo?
Look, it's been what, four starts?
Games. Yeah.
He's fun. There's still some rawness, it looks like, but I've used the reference that he looks like the block from Mario. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like those gray face guys? I think it's called the Thwomp. Because like he like when he comes across the crease, he just looks like a huge block, and
just sliding.
He like it looks like there's no space to ever shoot on him. I'm not the goalie guy. I rely on the Kevin Woodleys of the world for this sort of stuff, but I think if he can like harness the power to constantly, because it looks like there's a lot of power in his game, if he can just get to a stage where he's tracking the play so well, and just being such a huge presence, like it's 6'6", and it looks 6'6".
Yeah,
because I remember, oh man, I'm totally blanking on his name. It was Markstrom's backup, Anders Nilsson.
Yeah,
he was huge. Like you see him in the hallways, and you're like, oh my god, like this guy's massive.
Like one's scoring on you. And yet,
like it was like he was 6'6". I want to say like 240, and he looked every bit of it. And then in the net, like the shoulders would kind of concave, and you're like, oh, you don't actually play 6'6". Tolopilo, like I love that he keeps like the waist. Like he doesn't bend at the waist, and so the shoulders never dip, and the chin never dips, and all that sort of stuff. Like he looks every bit of 6'6" to me.
Yep, I really like. So there was one game. I think it was his second game, and I was watching him, and I was like, his raw talent, his ability to track the puck, and his reflexes were just like, I was like, this guy is going to be amazing. But his movements were just a little uncontrolled, right? Like he was just sliding a little too much, right? Giving a little too much net, right? Goalies, when we're playing goal, we learned that, if we give a little bit, then we can expect the shot to go that way. It doesn't play like that in the NHL, right? Like, I played with Trevor Linden in the North Shore Winter Club, and I was like, I had a fast glove hand, so I'm like, I'll give him a little bit on the glove side, and boom, top blocker, and I'm like, oh yeah, I wasn't ready for that. It was supposed to go this side, so I was like, his movements just looked a little bit too not NHL. And then I was so impressed because it was 2 games later, he was playing again, and he had tightened it right up. And I told Rob this. I was like, his movements were very deliberate and very, very smooth and short to the puck. And everything was centered chest, right? Because you want that puck center chest. And he improved upon it. So I'm sitting there going, well, he must have watched video, like, over the course of the next 2 days and improved. So to me, that was the key thing, right? When you got raw talent, if you have the raw talent, that's awesome. But if you can't improve your game based on the mistakes you've made, you're not going to be an NHL goalie for too long. And he was able to take that, learn from that, and then actually, control it and change his game so that he was better. I still think he's got a couple of years before he's really, going to be a regular NHL goalie. But I'm quite impressed with what he's bringing right now.
He's still so young in his career. Like he's 25. I get that. He's going to turn 26 soon. But like we're talking about 115. So I think maybe even less than that. Total starts in America. It's not very many.
Yeah.
So when you're so inexperienced, like he's got a lot of work to do real fast here, obviously. And I'm curious if there's an opportunity for him next season. But he's like the rest of this season is really important for him.
Definitely, especially with Thatcher being out for who knows how long now, right? So. Anyway, yeah, I like him. I'm excited to see him, and I hope he continues to develop and does really good, even if Myers is in front of him.
So I want to be respectful of your time, Bik, but we've been chatting pretty good here, and we probably chat for a long time. But Shylo, I'm going to throw it your direction. I don't know how you want to. I don't know how to segue into this. What,
you're going to ask them the questions?
No, your story. I think the you and Bik story. I think is. I'll edit this part out as far as the banter here, but I don't know. I think.
So I guess it's how I met Bik, because I'd met Sat before when he was at TSN, and I personally knew Sat, and I was listening to the show all the time. I met him and Bro Jake, and so when that whole thing sort of dissolved, and he went over to Sportsnet, I was like, well, okay, I'll listen for Sat. And it's kind of funny because it's one of those things where it's like I came for Sat, but I stayed for Bik. And
let's slow down a little bit here. Yeah.
Sorry, Sat.
Sorry, Sat. Love you, Sat, but your co-host is really good. And I think what it was I guess I knew really Sat's take on things, right? Because it hasn't really changed too much. But I think Bik was like a fresh new voice. He was someone that, had a new look on things. And I was like, oh yeah, like, I think that's what I was attracted to, it wasn't like the same rhetoric, and not that Sat does, rhetoric of everything else, but it was just a new voice. And so I was listening, and then we were talking about, it was the rookie year of Pettersson. I think it was his third game in. And was it his third game, or was it the Calgary game where he got the hat trick?
Oh man, I don't remember what game.
I'm trying to remember.
The thing was, it was like this had been building for a year, because obviously the first year of the station, he's overseas.
Yeah,
he's already been drafted. He's having a fantastic year over with the Lakers, and like we because the show, I was producing the show for Sat, and it was me, Sat, and John, and we were in the middle of we were 9 o'clock. And so overseas, Elias Pettersson was playing for Vex Show while we were doing the show. And so as the season went along, we were like, why don't we just do updates on Elias Pettersson? Like, we need something for the show. And so if he would score, we would play like a clip or something. And it just became a thing of the show of like, hey, Elias Pettersson's coming to Vancouver at some stage. So be ready and get hyped about it. And Brock Besser was having a fantastic rookie season, our first year as a station, but it very much became like we were kind of the Elias Pettersson show for a little while. We were hitting a goal. We were playing the Vexo Lakers goal song, the goal horn, every time he scored, and we were just having fun with it. And then the year that he arrived, it's like, okay, you hope he's good now. Like, well, we really hope he's good. And then he scores on the first shot, and then he has a huge game to begin his career. And at some point, like, it just started to kind of grow. And obviously, like, we remember that first rookie year, like he was electric.
Yep. And then I remember I was listening on the radio, and Bik says, he goes, someone should make a church for this guy. And like, that's how good he is, right? Like, he needs his own church. And so I jumped on Twitter and I quickly created a Twitter account called the Church of Pettersson. And I did it so fast that when I was doing the name, it trumped it down to of Pettersson, but I wasn't really paying attention. Right. And I just went, yeah, okay, Church of Pettersson, yeah, accept. Because all I'm in my head, all I'm thinking is, I got to tweet to Bik. Like, this is going to be hilarious, right? So I didn't even look at what the name was or anything, and it just automatically defaulted to of Pettersson. And I was just like, later on, I was like, oh, well, whatever, I'll make it work. But then it was like that first thing, and I just like tweet, like I can't even remember. I should go back and take a look at what that first tweet was, because it was directed right at you, and it was like, the church is here or something like that.
Right. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
And
I just brought up the game log for Elias Pettersson in his rookie year, and his 9th game was the Colorado game where he had 5 points. So I bet you it was the day after that, because he set up he scored the game tying goal, and he set up the OT winner. And I think that's the game. It might be the game where he shot the puck off the guy's head and he was like concerned. He's like, oh, and he went and scored the goal anyways, right? So I think it was that game where we're on the air the next day. It's like a 5.9 for this guy, 9 games into his career. Like someone built this guy a church. Yeah. And it was just like, I've written all these ideas of like, oh, it'd be funny and bring this to the air one day. Like as much as I was a spontaneous thing, like I kind of like had it ready to go. And it was just so funny. Like I start seeing the tweets and I was like, oh my God, like someone's actually going to do this thing. Like, okay, that's awesome.
And then it just took off. Like it became a huge thing, but we can talk about that another time, Rob. We can dig into the Church of Pettersson and I'll regale you with sort of the history of it and where it's going and where it's going. But it all started from Bik just making that comment on the radio and then me saying, you know what? That's a great idea. I'm going to do it. Because I was a huge Pettersson fan. I thought this guy he was the next McDavid, and I still got a lot of respect for him. I don't know what the fix is, because I don't know what the problem is. And it's hard to say, hey, just need to do this, to deal with it. But I'm like, I don't even know why the game dropped off. So, but I still respect him for that raw skill he has, that raw talent. And like we saw it tonight, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like that puck was on and off his stick, top of the net, fast. Like that was, I'm sitting there going, well, that's rookie Pettersson right there, right? Guy turns around, sort of not a no looker, but basically just feeding the center of the ice. And he doesn't even hesitate. He doesn't even, nothing. It's just, there it is. And up it goes and it's in the net. It was gorgeous. And that's that raw talent. And I'm kind of like, I bet you he wasn't even thinking when that happened.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I wish we could just maybe turn off his brain and make him so he's not thinking. Maybe that's the fix, but like that's that talent. You can't train that. You can't develop that level. You know what I mean? That's raw. That's got to be there. And then you can make it better, or you can not utilize it and it doesn't really go anywhere. But I was always a Pettersson fan. I actually got to meet him. Thank you, Bik. And this was because of Bik. I got to meet Pettersson in person. I was in. They did an article about us, and like were you like beside yourself watching that? Like,
no, honestly, like again, I'm so happy that you were the one that embraced this all, because it generally is like one of my favorite things of my entire broadcasting career. Like I've done some fun stuff, and I have great memories of small town radio, and like I've done some, like I jumped out of an airplane once for a station promo, right? Like I've done fun stuff, but honestly, like the interacting with the fan base is so much fun, and this is like, I just had a small dumb idea. I didn't think it was gonna take off or whatever it was. I was like, oh yeah, like somebody should make a church of this, and the fact that someone grew it into something and had the result. It's one thing if it just exists on its own. It's an online thing, and it's like, oh, thousands of people are following, and it's the memes and all that. But like it's so fulfilling for me that, hey, an idea got to have you come to the arena, and the team embraced it, and he's checking it out, and then you got to meet players like that. That to me is like so awesome. It's generally like one of the like my favorite things of my career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was pretty epic. And who knows, if COVID hadn't come around, it may have actually survived a bit longer too. But yeah, it was awesome. Mm-hmm. So, I thank you for that, Bik, and it gave me the opportunity to actually get to meet you in person too. So
yeah, thank you, man. That was great. Again, I know you've pitched ideas to me. We're like, oh, should we do this? I was like, dude, you're running it so well. You're again, the first thought was like, oh, should I do this? Should I like start the church? I was like, no, it's better to just let the fans have it. And I'm so glad that you've done so well with it.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
Well, that's an awesome story. I mean, I knew part of that story, between the church and who said he's an alien. Someone said he's an alien, and that there was the fusion of the ideas, right? So, Well, there you go. The reveal of the Church of Pettersson. Well, Shylo and I have talked about this for a couple of years, but here we are. So a big debt of gratitude for getting that going. That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, it's. I'm glad you finally made the reveal. That's glad I could be here for it.
There you go.
Well, you had to be here for it.
Yeah.
You were there for the idea creation, so you might as well be here for the reveal of the creation, right? It makes sense.
Awesome. So again, to be respectful of your time, I have a little fun thing to kind of wrap this up, and
sure, yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, let's this is a little speed round wrap up questions. Bik, who is your favorite Canucks player of all time?
All right, I'll give you a 2-part answer here. So the reason I got into the Vancouver Canucks, let's be real, it's Pavel Bure, right? He was so much fun. And every one of your friends was talking about Pavel Bure, right? So that's why I started getting into the Canucks. But after I watched so many times, and I'm contrarian by nature, right? It works for my profession. So everyone loved Pavel Bure. I was like, yeah, he's good, guys. But my favorite player is Cliff Ronning. I enjoyed watching Cliff Ronning so much, right? Because I was an undersized, person, and I was like, Cliff Ronning, how's he getting so many points? This guy's awesome. So my favorite player growing up was Cliff Ronning.
Awesome,
nice.
Okay, so next question is, what was your favorite Canucks era? 70s, 82, 94, 2011, or now? Just kidding. 2.5 years ago, with peak PD, peak Miller, peak Demko, and a burgeoning Hughes.
It's definitely 94. I've got a lot of respect. Again, I was older, obviously in the 2011 stretches, and they played I watched as many games as I could from up north. Right, I watched so much because that team was so good.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the reason, again, just as a kid, you fell in love with the game, you fell in love with the team because of the first success that you see. And I don't remember as much from the 94 run, but I remember how I felt. And that to me is always so special, that run there.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bik, somewhere in my parents' house, I have 15 VHS tapes of the 94 run, and you need 16 to win the cup. And all labeled, I'm missing some. And so when I find them, I will find a way to digitize them. And
that's awesome. And I love stories of fandom like that, right? I'm a big Seahawks fan, I'm a big Man United fan. I've got matches saved as well. Every once in a while, I'll throw it on for a rewatch. I'll be doing dishes, but there's Cam Chancellor jacking someone up across the middle, right? I love watching something like that.
Yeah, old VHS with McGillney on it, et cetera, et cetera. Do you play hockey at all?
No, I can't. I've had too many concussions in my life, so I don't. Okay. Honestly, I'm not as active as I should be. But I can't risk another concussion.
Well, you'll have to join the hockey guy when he does his ball hockey game up in Port Moody there.
All right, there you go. Yeah,
there you go. What's your favorite Canucks uniform? 70s original, the 80s V, which the black one looks not too bad sometimes, but they had the black and the yellow. Terrible. Yellow skate jersey, white skate jersey, the modernized stick and rink, or the 2011 Orca with Vancouver on it, or the current Orca only.
The 2011. I love the blue and green. It's fantastic. The colors just pop so well, and I think the blue and green, it also just feels representative of the West Coast, and I think that should be a factor in a team's logo and team colors and all that. I love the blue and green.
That's just because you're a Seahawks fan. Come on.
but they're also on the West Coast, right? They're representing the West Coast.
Yeah. Okay, now I've labeled this section Deep Geek Questions. We're almost done here. Who's your favorite non-Canuck player?
Ever?
Yeah.
Scott Niedermayer and Steve Yzerman.
Okay. Good answers.
I like the contrarian nature. I like the defensive center, and I like the offensive demon. I love watching those guys who can do multiple jobs.
Have you watched old Yzerman highlights when before he became defensively minded?
Oh yeah.
No, so right. So I was born in '85, and so I know that he put up 100-point years and it was unreal.
Oh.
But I would watch him basically from '94 onwards, '93 onwards, and I just remember being like, "Who's that guy?" Obviously I tuned into those games because of Fedorov, but I just remember being like, "Who's that guy?" And over the course of the '90s, I was like, yeah, that guy rules.
It was shocking how good he was. It was crazy.
Yeah,
how
he's
gifted
unreal,
he was.
Hey Rob, my two favorite players.
Yeah,
Brett Gretzky and Luke Hughes.
You're saying one of the same. Okay, next question for you is something's happening here. I can't scroll down. I'll go to my next file here. Who do you think the best winger would have been for the Sedins? Bure, McGillney, Naslund, Petey, Tanti, Skriko. I put Linden, Burrows, Messier, Miller, or Quinn Hughes.
Linden. Oh, Linden.
Sorry, can you go through the first 4 names on that list again?
Yep. Bure, McGillney, Naslund, Petey, Tanti, Skriko, and then Linden, Burrows, Messier, Miller.
I'll go McGillney. Because I feel I wonder how Bure would have done with Daniel and Henrik.
No, it's too. I don't think it would have done well.
Is he too explosive? Is he too right? I don't know how that would have meshed, but McGillney would have been unreal with those guys.
I'm thinking Naslund.
The thing is, we saw it. Again, mind you, the faded version of Marcus Naslund.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But there were stretches where they played together. But I think my memory of McGillney is he was good along the boards. He
was excellent.
Oh, he was great.
I think he was one of the best guys who could take it clean off the boards.
He could do anything he wanted. And if you listen to the Spit and Chicklets with Adrian Aucoin, he talked about that, and he says whatever he decided to do, he did it. And I remember I was at the game he actually referenced where he crushed on the forecheck. He body checked the defender, took the puck off, and scored because that guy had cheap shotted him just 20 seconds before that. He literally could do anything he wanted. So
yeah, I think McGillney would be my pick there.
Awesome, that's a great pick because I was my secret pick. I didn't put Bertuzzi on there, but that was a bit of an oversight. But Bertuzzi should be on that list too. Game 7 of the Stanley Cup: start, bench, or scratch. Luongo, McLean, or Demko.
Oh man, I will start. I'll start McLean. I'll bench Luongo, and I'll scratch Demko.
Okay. Wow. All right. You're given an undo button. What trade or trades would you undo in Canuck history?
OEL.
Yeah.
That's
easy.
Yeah, I think that's easiest.
Okay.
I think it's the worst trade in franchise history.
Wow. Okay. Even over
what's
Cam
the
Neely?
next closest?
Cam Neely?
Yeah, but the thing is you can only do it at the time of knowing for me, right? We didn't know Cam Neely was going to be Cam Neely.
Right.
You knew this OEL thing was not going to work out from minute one. It was destined to fail. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was destined to fail.
Okay, next question. You just bought the team. What's the first thing you do? And if practice facility is your first answer, you get a second answer.
The first thing I do, man, I got some controversial ones. But it's not even about what's best for the team. These are just my own personal philosophies. Mm-hmm. I'm unretiring all the numbers because I just don't believe in retired jerseys. I think it's cooler. I think it's cooler for people to uphold the legacy of the number.
Totally. I love that idea because having someone wear Linden's number, mm-hmm. but if they suck, they're not going to be They're not gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna wear Linden's. Like if it's like
you got to earn the right to wear the number.
Exactly, right?
And that to me, I think holds more weight than trying to craft out your own legacy. Mm-hmm. And again, this goes out to the competitive mindset that was meant. Bringing up earlier, like I want people to aspire and embrace wanting to wear 12, wanting to wear 16, wanting to wear 22 and 33. I want to find those people more than the talent and everything. I want to find those players that want to do that. And to go back to an earlier conversation we're having about this competitive mindset that this organization needs to take on, I loathe every time we hear like, oh, it's tough in a Canadian market. It's like, no, it's really not. It's awesome in a Canadian market. You are just unfamiliar with getting to say like all this stuff without the NFL overshadowing the headlines of whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. You should embrace wanting to be in a Canadian market because it's awesome. And I like that mentality of like, go live up to the standard of Stan Smeel and Trevor Linden and Daniel and Henrik Sedin. If you can get close to what they've done in their careers, think how much better off the franchise would be.
Mm-hmm. Last question is, what do you do to fix this team? But we already answered that. You had your magic wand, and I think you're good. That was awesome, Bik. We really appreciate that. Is there anything that you personally or you have on the side, or anything you want to promote or mention? I stole this right out of Hot Ones on YouTube. So if anything that you want to talk about that you don't have a chance to talk about on the air.
Honestly, I am so grateful. Like we say it all the time when the season ends or over the holidays. We're so grateful for the amount of people that tune in and text into the post game shows. We're learning all about different people and where they're coming from, and like we've had fans from Australia come visit the studio. Like I'm so grateful, and it's such a rare opportunity. Like again, I'm very self-aware of the idea. Like not a lot of people have been in the position to host a post-game show on the radio for the rights holders for the Canucks, and Sat and I talk about all the time. Like we're pumped up that so many people interact with us, and we get all the different spectrum of feedback. Like again, I know we get negative feedback and we get positive feedback. We love it all. We genuinely love it all because it offers different perspectives. So I'll keep plugging that. The post-game podcast, Canucks Central, and 650 keep texting in. We really do appreciate it.
No, it's like the Canucks. Like if people are happy, that's awesome. If people are upset, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's when they just don't care anymore. That's when it's the issue. Mm-hmm. So, if someone phones in going, Bik, you're an idiot. Well, that's awesome.
I love it. Honestly, like, one of my favorite days is actually in the year they traded Bo Horvat, because I had a lot of opinions on should they keep him, all that. And I was kind of a central figure of like, oh, they really shouldn't keep him. And then he had a game, I can't remember who his games, but he had a hat trick. And like the tweets started coming in that night. And it's like, we can't wait till you're on the air. Next, I was like, call in. Tell me I'm an idiot. That's fine. Like I'm gonna be okay. It's your day to get your shots up, and that's honestly like one of my favorite shows because I had so many texts about it, and be like, I can't believe you want to get rid of this guy. And I read every single one of those texts because it's important to like offer the entire range of fan opinion. It's not just my show. It's all of our shows, right? It's all of us collectively kind of being part of that community here.
Exactly.
Well, it was a pleasure to meet you. It was a pleasure to spend an hour with you, and I thank you so much for coming on, and and thanks Shylo for making the connection, and what a fun episode.
Thank you very much for coming.
Right on, man. Whenever you guys need me, let me know, okay?
All right.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Bik. Have a good night.
Cheers, guys.
Night. Right.
Bye.
Thank you for watching Canucks Only.
Canucks Only. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe.